Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Many of y'all know that in addition to serving as the rabbi of Congregation Beth Shalom, I also serve as a chaplain for the Delaware State Police. And so I was at the funeral of Corporal Ty Snook on Monday with the other three chaplains who were there. I was talking to one of them. We were talking about how I was the only one who wasn't Christian. There were two Catholic and then one Methodist, and then there's me who is Jewish. And he was saying, well, it's all right. So the whole idea of having different religions is just hubris. It's arrogance. And that God really just wants us all to be of one faith and one mind, and it's one God, and we're all the same. And I think he meant that to try and be like encouraging and like nice and welcoming and whatever. But it didn't sit that way with me. It's not that I necessarily took it in like a supersessionist direction of like, hey, if you'd gotten the good news, you'd be my religion already, like that kind of thing. That wasn't exactly where I took it. But I think there is perhaps something that can be lost in the flattening of identity, the ironing us all out so that we're all one and the same in this way. And so we get this really interesting Torah portion here, Parshat Shemot, the very first one of the book of Exodus, where we get two kinds of flattening of identity in inverse ways that are actually really interesting to contrast with one another. The whole book starts out, Shemot does not mean Exodus in Hebrew. What does Shemot mean? Somebody? Anybody? Names, thank you. And it starts out, these are the names of the people who went down into Egypt, and it's naming Jacob's children, the 12 tribes. Zvulun and Issachar and Reuven, and there's 12 of them. But what's interesting is that we're just coming out of the Joseph story in which that sibling conflict is very, very much the story of the Jewish people at that time. It, I think, in some ways would be a misnomer to even think about us as one Jewish, let alone one Israelite people, when we're so busy worrying about Cain killing Cain killing Abel, and Jacob running from Esav, and then the 12 brothers, and they sell the one off, and then they come back, but they don't recognize the other one. It's this loose, nasty family thing that sort of goes round and round and round, but it's not a people. It's not a people in any meaningful way. And yet, by the time we hit Shemot, these are the names of all the people who went down there. And then a new Pharaoh rises up who did not know Joseph, Jacob, and all of that, and says, these people are different than us. There's us, the Egyptians, and then there's them over there, and we should deal shrewdly with them, lest they number too many. We don't want to have too many of those people in our midst. And so it's this interesting moment that collapses all of those family units of the Israelites into one Israelite people, but it also blasts apart the idea that those people happen to be the same as the Egyptians. We're remaking everyone's identity all in chapter, if that. And so to me, it's a remarkable exploration of what do you gain or lose when you have that kind of collapsing of who you are as an identity. I was talking about this guy saying that, just having different religions, this clergy of a different faith tradition that happened to be Christian, when he was saying that to me, I was talking about this with the adult education group, discussing prayer and whatever. And one of them said, it's funny. You combine Christianity and Judaism into messianism of some kind, and it gets kind of uncomfortable. But at the same time, having them sort of be with one another in this space, I wasn't uncomfortable being in this space with Christian clergy. I'm not uncomfortable having family who are Christian. I'm the product of an interfaith marriage. My dad's whole family are Christian. I can hang out with them. Do I want to put a Magen David at the top of the Christmas tree? No. I don't need to synthesize and combine those two things into somehow one identity, but I'm okay being in the space with some people who come or believe a little bit differently than me. It's okay. In fact, I think the fact that we hold that as a difference gives us that much more latitude and room to be ourselves in that sense, without pressure that we need to be one another. But then you have the flip side of it, which is that sort of othering, saying, oh, those people over there, they're not like me or my kind or my own. They're different. They're not people in the same way. Maybe they're not even people. Let us deal shrewdly with them. It's a remarkable thing that both in the collapsing of difference, but also in the creating of it and space, both of those can be deployed in erasing who somebody else is. I think it's a really remarkable thing. That you can collapse all the Israelite identities, but somehow we still have the 12 tribes. Somehow, stained glass windows, if you haven't seen them recently, you should. There's 12 of them. They are all for the 12 tribes and all of that. We've taken and incorporated that idea of being all these different families and people from all over, and even having struggled between them, but into being an Israelite people, to being a Jewish people. We've somehow done that without flattening out or destroying or bleaching out who we were. And then there's the whole Egypt thing, in which, oh, they're different than us. Why don't we squash them? So it's an interesting both contradiction of both erasing someone else's identity to make them like you or making them different than you so they are the other and maybe less human. But you arrive at the same place, weirdly enough. It's like that horseshoe theory of extremism. You go down one path of extremism long enough and it begins to look like other people's extremism. It's a similar thing with identity in that standpoint. And so what I think becomes the ultimate and interesting tell from this week's parsha is, when are we uplifting who people are and when are we erasing it? It's not just similarity or difference. You can read Sir Chief Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. He has a whole book called The Dignity of Difference. It's great. But it's not just that. It's when are we uplifting who one another is and when are we erasing it? And we ought to be very, very careful and cautious and judicious about that as an enterprise in the world we live in today. Shabbat Shalom.